G'day, citizens. I'm Execute, joined today by Algared. How you doing, mate?
I am alive.
And kicking.
Better than I was on Monday.
That's good. Yeah, well, you had a nasty flu, so yeah. All right, so back to watching ISC. From everything I've read on this one from the description, it's about the new cargo missions that are coming up, and I have been playing them in Evo. Specifically the very first one. I think that's the one they got to get right. And it has been rather buggy, so I'm interested to see their kind of take on where this goes. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think the same. It probably is the cargo missions they're talking about, and I haven't had as much chance to get in and play and try out the new mission. FAKD usually is buggy, and it's just a process of working out where those bugs are and finding them and stomping them. And if it's a cargo mission for new people, then you really want it to be without bugs. It was one of the things I found with that first starter mission. It kind of said, no, you're starting at ArcCorp. You don't have a choice. That's where everything's going to be. For me, I hated it just because so many little things. It would have been nice if after that mission you could actually go back and say, okay, I actually want to be here.
Yeah. It's so the main problem I've been having, if I had to lay out the main bug I'm having, is it'll give you a certain number of SCU to pick up, somewhere between say 5 to 10, and when I get to the location and I put them on the cargo grid, it is not recognizing them, and sometimes it gives me multiples of to say it gives me 6 SCU, there'll be multiple bunches of the SCU, so you don't know which one you've got to take. So it says that you've left them behind. So as soon as it says you've left them behind, you know it's bugged out. So there's a kind of like a duplication bug and not recognizing they're going onto the grid. They're the two main issues at the moment, and that is going to be really frustrating for new players. And then there's some other little niggly things that are not related to the mission that are annoying. So ship tractor beams. At the moment, you can't kind of pull backwards and forwards properly with ship tractor beams, so it really is a mission only for the hand tractor beams to load off and offload type of thing. So they're my two big gripes, and I'd like to see if they talk about it here today. So yeah. All right, Dan, let's kick it off, see what they say.
The upcoming Alpha 324 has a variety of life in the verse changing aspects, including the personal persistent hangars, freight elevators, and the next step forward in physicalized inventory. But with these changes come a new era in cargo-specific mission content. Different than the commodity runs you might be used to, we spoke in depth about this in our recent Making Missions 2 episode of Star Citizen Live, which you should check out if you haven't already. Your Nick did great. And on this week's ISC, they're joined by Elliot and yet another Nick to show you these new cargo missions and reintroduce us to the long-mentioned Blockade Runner global event.
So how many of these do you think you've done at this point?
Videos for you, I don't know, over 20.
You still like doing them?
Yeah.
This is the third one, so I guess I've done 2 before this.
This will be my second.
What was your first one?
Also Blockade Runner.
This your first one? You nervous?
Tiny bit.
They gotten easier or harder?
Easier. When I first started, I was focused too much on the camera, and that was making me think too much.
When there's a camera pointed at you, it's still a little bit different than just speaking to people, but...
I've tried to look at you or thought that the camera was someone. It made it easier because it felt like I was just talking to someone instead of looking at a machine trying to be perfect.
So you stopped trying to be perfect?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm just like, yeah.
That should have been easy for you.
Until the current event in this sector has been resolved, civilians are advised to avoid engaging in space travel.
Blockade Runner is an event that focuses on cargo hauling and space combat.
The inhabitants of a station ask for aid. The bad guys have blockaded one of these stations, and the citizens there need help to get certain supplies from outside to go back in.
The idea with it is that you would have someone who flies a cargo ship and loads up full of cargo, and then have a bunch of escort ships that help fight them. However, the way they now have to get the cargo means they have to actually go and extract it from pirates who have taken it from the station.
We wanted to make a cargo-based event because a lot of our current events really heavy on combat. And cargo's been kind of underutilized on the global event scene, and we thought it would be fun to work that into our usual design.
It is important to try different events that are not just combat focused, because I would agree with that statement, Algared, that a lot of the game is very combat focused.
100%. Although we want to make an event that's not combat focused, but we're putting it in the middle of a combat focused.
Yeah,
scenario.
which is a bit of a juxtaposition.
That's right, and I think you've missed the boat. And I get it that it's trying to include everyone, but I
think in the last event, so in Xeno, you still do have that more cargo aspect as well, like, but they're running separately. So I think you've kind of got that one where they're running separately. It sounds like they're kind of trying to get the teamwork going, like they're trying to get the escorting going, and I'm gonna be honest. If you are working together, that actually sounds better to me than working apart. Like, I like the camaraderie thing.
I like the idea, and like you're picking up, I like the idea that they've, in Xeno 3, you've got the missions where you've got the combat aspect, you've got the pick up the cargo, and they are unified, but different. You can do those missions without being a combat person. You can actually just do the cargo aspect of that. Whereas the cargo missions in Lockdown have always felt, the blockade runs have always felt they're still more combat focused. And so for me, it's just not necessarily my cup of tea. But I do like the idea of having full combat missions.
Yeah.
Full
I guess
PvE,
it's,
and then that mix.
I guess it's still teething issues, and you got to remember we don't have a lot of other gameplay to go with it. Like, cargo is really fundamentally, look how far in we are, and we are really only just getting into hauling missions the next coming patch. Like, we've just had box missions up to this point, so we're not even quite there yet. And as I said at the start of this video, there are teething issues. So is this a cart before the horse thing? And that's what I'm trying to say. I think they've waited to the appropriate time to do this, and you're already seeing they had the cargo boxes in the back. So essentially they've taken the old what they call it, blockade runner mission, where you got the cargo yourself, and now they're applying it that you've got to take back the cargo. So that's a really cool combat if you think about it. You got to go in, not destroy the enemy, but take back the stuff.
Another way of doing just thinking pure cargo mission, you could have link it up with mining, where the refineries just need certain minerals, so you actually go out and mine it and then have to haul it back, or then take the refined stuff to another station or location. So there are different ways you can do it, but are they going to be as exciting? Depending on who you're talking to,
I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, essentially, we're going to get those as those gameplays come in. It's pretty obvious. So we just got to give them time to get more out, because to be honest, a good one would be a medical one, where you go in and you've got to recover a bunch of people, but we're not quite there for medical yet. We don't have the AI to quite bring that on board. So as things come on board, I think no doubt these missions will fill out. My alarm's just gone off. Turn it off. Everyone's going to enjoy my alarm going off for intermission. All right, here we go.
Yeah, it was an intermission. But before we start, even though we're not there for the medical missions, with mining being so far advanced, you'd think we would be there for more mining-esque missions as well. But
I think it just shows that not enough of the gameplay is there for all of these things. They are not like, as you said, you talked about refining. Refining's not there.
But
there are missing
stuff. But I suppose I see what you're saying.
There are missing links in the chain, is what I'm trying to get to. So they need time to fill it out. So all right, here we go.
Saw from Xenothreat. When we first put Xenothreat out, we really liked when we saw players working together in kind of like a Dunkirk type moment, where one person had pulled up, just opened the ramp, a couple of people had cleared the wreck already, and then they're all just throwing cargo into the back of someone's ship. They don't know this person, They've not talked to them, but everyone understands their role in this space they've created. And there's people who are flying above, sort of also protecting against the waves of Ninetales that were coming to the wreck. And it was just this beautiful mix of people who just all kind of knew exactly what role they fit into and asked no questions and just got the job done. We wanted to recreate that feeling in its own event. So the flow of Blockade Runner is when you start the mission, you will receive marker points of potential sites where a pirate could be that has stolen cargo from the station that's requesting its return.
A hostile enemy force has attacked one of the LEOs throughout Stanton, and they've stolen a great deal of Zeta Prolanide from it. This Zeta Prolanide's been shipped out, it's being carried away, and the remainder of the enemy force has stayed behind, surrounding the LEO in a blockade. It's up to players of the verse to chase down these enemy ships that contain the stolen material, defeat them in combat, reclaim the material.
Either via the use of distortion weapons to make sure you get every piece of cargo that's on board the ship, or via killing it and maybe getting less, but you run less of the risk of dying yourself.
Once they do recover the stolen material from the ships scattered throughout space, they'll have to make their way past the blockade and return it to the LEO.
There will be ships flying around that you have to actually disable while trying to land, or else you could lose all of your cargo.
Either way, their goal is to land safely at the LEO with the stolen material on. And once they have that, they get to use our fancy new cargo elevator mechanic to return the stolen cargo to the station.
The reward for Blockade...
Yeah, so that shows me it, not just a new event, but it allows them more testing on the cargo elevators, which you can clearly see is needed. And you can see there that they're doing it all by hand tractor beam. Yeah, I tested on a few different starter ships, and that's the one glaring oversight, that the ship tractor beams just don't work properly, which I don't think we're going to see it fixed in this patch. I think they're concentrating on the grid more than on the individual ships.
Yeah, and I think that's the way they've always worked. They've tried to work on the one thing, and then once they get the basic, the basic thing they need done, then they expand it. So we've got the hand tractor beams working well. We get the grid working well. Then we fine tune the ship tractor beams and move forward. So
yeah, it's there's a lot of moving parts to it. You can see, because a lot of things have got to line up. But the other one that I'd seen causing issue too is because they've now moved to instant hangars. Sometimes I'd get some really weird things, like I'd go into a third-person view, and it wouldn't be my ship; it would be another ship in a different instance hangar. Stuff like that. So there are some really cool, weird bugs as well, but I'm sure they'll get sorted.
Yeah.
All right.
Is based off of participation. There will be, similar to Xenothreat, there'll be a bar that fills up with contribution, and every time that bar kind of ticks over, you'll get a payment, and then you'll get a big chunk at the end when all of the SCU amount of cargo has been retrieved back to the station. So to get all of the cargo, I'd recommend using distortion weapons and boarding the ship. This way you can ensure that you get everything out of the cargo hold, whereas if you do it the other way, you go from this 100% sort of loot to maybe 30%. There's going to be a big difference to encourage a different type of gameplay that players aren't really used to playing in our game.
I think a lot of the game loops in our game are a bit dry.
My question becomes now then, have they rebuffed distortions? Because distortions got nerfed to the ground in the last couple of patches, and that would have a really big difference in gameplay, especially in this mission where they're really exerting that distortion needs to be used.
Yep.
Yeah.
Out, and I like to think that you can get into the action pretty quick with this, and it's a relatively tight game loop, all things considering. I hope people will be able to jump in and out of it as they see fit and have a good time.
The other thing that comes to mind,
Yep, go ahead.
is this also, as much as I was arguing against, the combined combat cargo mission, is that this also enables them to further test master modes with the ability to target systems on the ship.
Yeah, that would make it. That would make a lot of sense for why they're doing a lot of events at the moment too. Yeah,
it gets them to get more people using that. Gets more testing on that,
Yep.
as well as bringing in the new stuff. So it really, you can see the logic behind it.
And as we
So,
move into the server meshing stuff as well, so you can see they're pushing on all fronts. Yeah. All right.
In addition to Blockade Runner, we're also adding a bunch of hauling missions that also utilize the freight elevator and instance hangars we're going to get.
Yeah, so that's the hauling interface, Algared. One of the interesting things is down here, you actually usually have to lower the elevator before you can even load it. It's kind of like what I was telling you, like things are slightly out of order. Same thing with the kind of elevators for ships. They kind of start up instead of down and things like that. So they're a little bit out of order. And you can kind of see here at the moment where it says 1x, like the number of cargo units. This is where it was showing me multiples of the same. So it might be, say, times 5. And instead of just being the 5 I've got to pick up, it would bug out and there would be multiples. Just to put on par. There are some other little glitchy things like the filters up here and stuff like that. You can't kind of tag them on and off. You've got to kind of, once you put them on, you've got to clear them off. You can't just like turn them off and on. So there are some teething issues with the HUD, and it's a very similar HUD here as in with the inventory. I can't remember what they're called, the inventory ones. You know, the ones where you got
inventory wardrobes.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing. So
yeah, and I get the idea of the fact that at the moment, you know, freight elevators, ship elevators are starting to close. That, as you point out, it's really just a default mode at the moment. And once they've got it working right, then they can fine tune it and work out the best balance for each. And maybe it's something they're looking at doing for the different grades of hanger. You know, you've got a cheap hanger that's going to take you more time.
Well, it's funny you mention it's funny you mention that, because the other thing is I've noticed that we're seeing safe land hangers as well as AeroView hangers now. So you might notice down here on the bottom, bottom left, well, it's behind my chair, but that says safe land. And when I go up to a station and I'm in a small ship, it will put me in a safe land hangar. But if I'm in a larger hangar, it'll be an AeroView hangar and stuff like that. So they are, well, I hadn't seen safe land hangers, right? So that's something new. And it makes me think down the road, are we going to see the Revel in York as well? So
that question is one that I wonder whether, you know, depending, just like we've talked about in the past, you know, the low tech, high tech, whether cheap hangers versus high quality hangers is going to change about, you know, the lift time or the loading time or all those elements as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
And then the question is, down the track, will you be able to, if you're in a small ship, get a Revel in York hanger versus, say...
is it size limited? Yeah.
Is it size limited, or can you actually decide which quality of hanger you want to go for? So,
well, it also puts it out there, are we possibly going to get other manufacturers of hanger too? We don't know.
But yeah.
All right.
The introduction of freight elevators, we can now make missions that we were never able to make before.
Up until now, we haven't really had any missions which allow you to use your cargo grid. You won't have to go to various different parts of a station or find a ground station to get your land vehicle. You'll be able to get everything you need for your trip organized in one place.
Now,
that's one other small thing that I don't like. I don't like that the ground vehicles are delivered on the ship elevators. I wish they had their own, and I think that's what we will eventually get, because where the cargo elevators come up, I reckon they will end up having a vehicle one, because it doesn't make sense to spawn a vehicle, drive it off, and then take it down to bring back the ship. It makes so much more sense to kind of have the ship there and then drive the vehicle from its own little elevator over onto the ship. It just doesn't feel right. So I think we're in a transition phase.
Yeah, and I know on some of the bigger hangars, it seems like you've got multiple of the cargo elevators. So there is room, certainly in the larger elevators, to do that.
Absolutely. Well, and that makes logical sense, because more likely, the bigger the ship, the more you can take a vehicle. You know, so but I still think there's room in the smaller ones to have 2 lifts in that area.
Yeah, possibly.
And you could technically do it on the cargo lift if you really had to. I'd rather it on the cargo lift than on the ship lift. Put it that way.
And I think it would be better on a cargo lift, because when you're putting the vehicle, you know, the ground vehicle in your ship, it has effectively become cargo.
Yep.
You know, the old choice with the and I go back to the Connie, the original Connie, you had the choice of taking the fighter,
Yep.
taking cargo, or taking an Ursa.
Yep.
You had to make a choice because they all existed on the same cargo grid / hangar.
Yep.
And I like that idea of choice, and it's even with vehicles today, it is still the same thing. You either take a vehicle or you take cargo.
Well,
So
it is one of the very first things I tried to do was to pull a vehicle out via the cargo lift, and then I found out later that no, you can only do it on via the ship one. So yeah. All right.
I can just go to my hangar and there's an ASOP terminal in there and I can watch my ship go down and come up and I can have all my boxes out. The ability it gives me to build the missions that I love is insane.
So for me as an economy designer, freight elevators means that I can reward players for new game loops and different types of activity that they haven't been able to fully play before, such as loading and unloading your cargo, figuring out logistics, and actually allowing players to monetize that effort and get a suitable reward for it. So the more time and effort that it takes to use the freight elevators and do the hauling missions effectively, the more opportunities I have as an economy designer to find the appropriate rewards for players for that game loop. And I don't want to see any Reddit threads on the rewards for these missions, because at the time of filming, we're still weeks away.
That means the numbers you see in this episode aren't the real numbers. Don't go to Reddit. Give this guy a break. They'll be real by the time the thing comes out.
You might be thinking, well, we've been moving boxes for a few years now. Those delivery missions already exist. What makes cargo hauling missions so special? Well, in cargo hauling missions, we're actually allowing you to move real commodity containers with real value through the verse. You're not stuck with 1 SEU boxes. If you're asked to move 400 SEU, those will actually be intelligently packed by the system into different container sizes, which means you'll be able to load them up on your cargo grids for your cargo ships the way you've always wanted to organize them.
These missions will handle high...
That's not possible. What's on the screen right there? I was not able to do that. So maybe some ships can, but the ships I used couldn't do that. They couldn't use the ship track commands. I didn't try it on the Cat. I tried it on a Cutlass, a Nomad, and something else. I can't remember the last one. But yeah, the ship ones don't allow you to move things backwards and forwards at the moment. So you can only kind of like turn them on, but you can't actually move the boxes. It's really kind of strange. I think the other thing, unless he hasn't mentioned it, is the whole physicalization of the cargo. That's the real big change, right? You were just moving a box, so it was just essentially you walking, carrying the box, but now you're physically loading them is a huge change.
Well, when in the later box missions, you did have 3 boxes you had to haul, so you did have to put them in, and then if you're doing them in a small ship, the order you put them in would help with getting them off because you had to take a different box at different locations. So if you did all 3 at the same time, you had a little bit of that. But this is hauling. This is what the cargo haulers and the hull drivers and all the truckers have probably wanted. This is
the vast amounts of cargo, not just 3 boxes.
This is immensely much more. It's much greater, and what can you say? But awesome.
Well, you can see the next step after this is when they bring back in force reactions as well, because if it's not tied down properly and stuff like that, all loose cargo is gonna change the game, because you're gonna have to be flying really careful if you've got loose cargo, because one little bump and you could lose the cargo or do damage to your ship. And my biggest concern there at the moment is when you're loading boxes in and out, it is very easy to hit your own ship. So I'm worried. I'm interested to know what that line is there. They're going to be like more forgiving when you're using a tractor beam and the damage, but if it's a loose ship, is it going to be more, so they're going to have to, there's an interesting design choice there between it's kind of hard to load things, but you didn't put it in a good cargo grid, so it acts slightly differently.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, it'd be nice to have the cargo grid almost a lock to the grid, and maybe an on-off of the grid to actually help with that. But yeah, teething issues, but you can see this is a huge development on hauling.
Volume of cargo. These missions are built for people who are going to own a Caterpillar, people who are going to own a Hull C. These are mimicking a logistical framework that's going to be needed in, you know, a system, a universe this big to transport the goods to and from different locations.
Let me give you some examples. You find a mission where a few different outposts on the surface of Hurston have mined some iron, and you've got to bring it up to Lorville, where then it can be transported further from there. So you go to each of these outposts, you land at that location, and there, in the warehouse
That's the ones I was talking about the other week. Anyway, sorry.
of that outpost, those containers will be waiting for you where you can call it up through the freight elevator. You load it up into your ship, and then you figure out what the next location is, and the next location, and the next location. And you can basically do those in any order you like.
You'll have single pickup, single drop-off, so this could be picking up...
See where he was dropping them off in the cargo elevator there? That's where I've been having that bug where it just, like, and I could put out, say I had 5 containers, I could put 3 of them there and it would recognize 3 of them, but the last 2 just wouldn't recognize. So that's the bug at the moment.
And then if that's the case, then it just doesn't, you can't complete the mission. It's like the old box missions where you take the box and the location to put in the box wasn't the machine, it was
pretty much
it's on top of the mission. And because you couldn't put it in, you couldn't complete the mission. And so
it's pretty much very similar. It feels very similar, I'll give you that, but it probably is a different issue. But yeah.
From the LEOs around ArtCorp, the Lagrange points, for example, and taking it to Area 18 or to Beijing Point, the station above. Then you'll have a multi-pickup and a singular drop-off. And then the opposite of that, which is singular pickup to multi-drop-off, could be the complete opposite, where you go from a Hurston DC to 2 other outposts delivering goods. It also lets us do a first static setup of what is being called StarSim, where we can test out the flow and then actually make the dynamic side of it work, where we can balance it based off of the needs and wants of the actual locations.
That's interesting. Like, so did you hear what he said there? So in future, it'll actually be based off the actual needs and wants of the location. That's huge. Yeah. So it makes it dynamic.
Yeah, it is an economy aspect as well. The other thing I just realised is when they were talking about the mission, say, at a mining station where they've got cargo that needs to be hauled, that's almost identically to what I was saying in terms of mining.
Yep.
You've got a mining situation, you're now taking that cargo you're hauling that cargo from that mining station to the place where it's going to be refined and then moved on elsewhere. So
I think you've answered your own question then. It's a mission, not an event.
Yeah. So they're doing missions for that, and they're actually tailoring missions for that type of thing already. So
The work that I was involved with missions with Yorit was to use the EVR algorithm that I created to make sure that all of the effort that you put in has a commensurate reward. EVR stands for effort versus reward. The EVR algorithm is a general balancing algorithm we've developed that takes into account the time and the difficulty of what you're doing, and it gives you a reward.
I don't know, Algared, but as a YouTuber, I'm sick of algorithms. I don't know about you. I just hope everyone else doesn't have the same problem with this algorithm. That's all I'm going to say, because they're a pain in the ass. All right, here we go.
That is appropriate for that. So if you do something that takes a long time, but isn't very difficult, or if you do something that takes a short time but is very difficult, you're going to get appropriately rewarded. So obviously, this kind of thing, effort and reward, isn't a new concept. It's been around since the beginning of computer games. But as the economy team moves forwards and we work on all of the exciting new features that are coming out, we're really happy to be able to bring this kind of coherent approach to the entire game economy.
So what I'm hearing...
In the end, cargo...
Yep, go ahead, sorry.
What I'm hearing is if you've got a mission that takes you an hour, but has no danger, the reward should be equal or to a mission that's very short, but very dangerous. They'll balance out.
Yeah, high risk, high reward, low risk, low reward, and then every version of that. So low risk, long time, high risk, high time would be the biggest payout. Yeah.
Yeah, high risk, high time is going to be the absolute goose that lays the golden egg. But it's nice to see that time is also seen as being equivalent to a risk. It's
the most valuable thing in the game.
Yeah. So if it's chewing up all your time, it's nice to see that. So yeah.
I just lost your camera, Algared.
Yeah, I just noticed that on the.
Cargo hauling missions aren't about how good you are at shooting the bad guys. It's about figuring out which hulls the universe needs. And ultimately, it's about having fun delivering some boxes. Thanks for watching, everybody.
So what did we learn this week? Well, hopefully that the cargo missions aim to provide a more involved and deliberate experience than the commodity ones you might be used to. That the blockade runner will benefit from boarding tactics more than simply just blowing things up. And that while your everyday life in the verse certainly changes in Alpha 324, it will continue to evolve in the subsequent 4.0 and beyond. And if you'd like to learn even more about these cargo missions, you can tune in to tomorrow's Star Citizen Live, where the team will talk even more about the stuff you saw here. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development with you. And we'll see you all here next week.
All right. Well, Algared, I can't see you, but I probably can still hear you. Oh no, there you're back.
Back, yay!
That was
right at the right.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting to see where they're going with it. And you can start to see how that's going to really connect in with the economic system. And kind of like you said yourself, you kind of realized, oh, that's what you meant by that. You wanted from the refinery mining stuff, but I think you've kind of realized yourself now. They've got to have that in place before they can do that.
Yeah.
So it's a cart before the horse thing.
But also, as you said, it's not an event, and when you have an event, you do want it to be one that kind of encapsulates and draws in everyone, a bit like Xenothreat.
Yeah.
The difference with Xenothreat is the sections of Xenothreat were more, felt more tailored to different groups. Whereas the blockade runner type ones have always felt more just combat focused. But maybe that's the way they're deliberately trying to do that event.
I think you've kind of realized now that they've got to have the gameplay in before they can make those events, and that would be my takeaway from just the discussion here today. The cargo hauling going in is a foundational thing that just touches so many different things, but once it's in, you can now start to apply that to the individual gameplays that come after it. Like, it really kind of needs to be here before you can put other things in.
I think the biggest thing that they were talking about there was actually the fact that as time goes forward, the cargo grid enables them to start really looking at the needs of a station, what the station wants and needs.
Yep.
And what the location wants and needs. And, a mining station that's got a glut of iron, that would seem to say that's when it's going to be cheap.
Yep. You can just see how connected it is to everything.
And so you can see the real big impact on the economy just at that point. So yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to hear below in the comments from viewers?
Yeah. What are you looking forward to in the cargo hauling? Are you someone who is a trucker who's been longing for that ability to do the large missions? Are you wanting to get your hands on being a loader, being the load master and sorting out that stuff?
For me, were you like Algared, and do you kind of have it? I don't know if you had an epiphany, but it sounded like you had a little bit of one. And you can now see that just how integral cargo is, and you've got to put that in first before you can get the other things that come afterwards.
I wouldn't say epiphany. I wouldn't say it was like a aha, but it was certainly
a realization, maybe.
It was certainly nice to see the things that I was wanting in terms of cargo hauling to actually be included. So that cargo delivery mission where you're doing the ore stuff, that was pure cargo. It wasn't necessarily one that was tied to combat. But then
well, I think I'll chuck that in there too. Are you looking forward to more interesting events coming down the road now? Now cargo's in. It's going to open the door to more other gameplays coming in. And I think hopefully, we've kind of had these same 3 or 4 events. I'd have to count them for the last couple of years. So I'm like Algared said, could we get a mining one or some other different gameplay? And I do really think that's tied to as the gameplay comes in, personally. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right then. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and thank you to everyone with that extra mile on Patreon at the end of the video. With that, he's been Algared.
He's been Execute, and we're out of here. Take care.
See you, citizens.